Greetings and salutations, and thank you for clicking on this video. Today I'm going to talk about the Linux software that I use to get things done. People ask me about this all the time. There are lots of folks out there who are wanting to get off of the Microsoft merry-go-round or are tired of Mac, and they're looking at Linux. And this is one of the questions that's constantly asked is, how about software? Can I run this piece of software? Can I do this? That sort of thing. And that question's kind of hard to answer because usually they will ask, can I run this specific piece of software? I can't live without it. And, sometimes you can. Sometimes you can put things on a wine layer that run in Windows and you can run them, or there's a version that's available for Linux if it comes from Mac or something like that. But a lot of the times you're going to have to move to another piece of software. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to get done what you got done before. You're just going to do it in a different way. And it takes a little while to get used to everything out there and figure out what you like. This is true. There's a learning curve there. And at this point in time, I no longer use any Microsoft products of any kind. None whatsoever. I have put up videos in the past where I showed using Wine to run some old Windows audio applications and things like that. I don't need them and I don't do them anymore. I've completely gone open source. I do not have a copy of Windows around. Up until maybe about a month or two ago, I had a copy of Windows that had come with an old machine that I was goofing around with, and I kind of kept it around. But I tried to boot into it and it wouldn't even work, so I just threw up my hands. I said, never mind. So I got rid of it. So I have absolutely no Windows. I'm doing everything Linux native these days and quite happy about it. And I just went through a period where I installed a bunch of stuff here because I got a new machine and then I moved some things around. I'm always reloading machines anyway because I'm checking out distros and things like that. And I just went through a big spate of that. So I figured now's a good time to talk about the software because I got it set up to do what I need it to do. So first of all, I wanted to show you guys what I have done with my Linux Mint 17.3 desktop. I've themed it up a little bit here. I'm using the Numix Cinnamon 2 theme for the panel and the menu, and as far as the windows are concerned, I'm using the Mint X Gray theme that's in Linux Mint 17.3, and I'm using the GNOME icon set because I like them. And so I kind of put my own stamp on it. And the background here is actually a background that I have had for a very, very long time. And I think I was using this background back when I was running Windows 98. So that's how long that I've had this. So no, I don't know where you could get it today. But anyway, I thought it was cool. Alright, so the first thing that I want to talk about is internet. I want to talk about the software that you use every day to get on the internet, just to cover a few things about it. I do not intend to get into LibreOffice here. I do not intend to get into some of the more basic things that show up with every Linux distribution. I'm going to talk about the things that I actually use every day. I realize that there is differences of opinion. There's people who like certain things that are different than what I do. I'm not saying that this is the best. This is what I like and this is what I use. So there you go. And the other thing that I wanted to say about that was that when I look at software, I'm looking at three things. First of all, is it stable and does it do what it says it's going to do? I mean, does it actually accomplish the job that it's supposed to do? Second of all, is it easy to use? I mean, I don't like a lot of things that have a lot of switches and ticks and clicks and things that complicated and convoluted. I like things to be pretty simple and straightforward. The simpler, the better. And then the last thing that I look at is whether the software is easy to install and set up. Because if you are going to reload systems or move things around a lot, then it's nice to be able to not have a piece of software that you rely on that when you load it up, you're going to have to open up a bunch of configuration files and hack at. I'm not interested at all in that. So there's a lot of software that I've looked at over the years that's been really groovy, but then I say it's too much configuration. I don't want to deal with it because if I have to reload it, then there you go. All right, so let's talk about internet first, just to get this out of the way. Interesting story that came up this morning as a sidebar. I had declared Geary Mail completely dead a couple of months ago. I said Geary Mail is gone for good and forget it, Well, it seems the developer of Geary has come out of hiding and released a new version this morning, so Geary is alive again. So if you guys out there who really like Geary Mail and switch to Thunderbird because I said it was dead, well, you can go back to Geary if you want to. He just released a new version, and of course it's in the repositories for most Linux distributions. You may get an older version, but I didn't have too much trouble with the older versions. My problem was that if it wasn't going to get security updates, then I wasn't interested in it. So that's just an interesting little sidebar there to add in. Geary Mail is back. So I use Firefox and I use Google Chrome. And I have both of them installed. Google Chrome is set up as the default for me. And the reason why is because I use a lot of Google services and they work natively in Google Chrome. Also, you're going to need Google Chrome these days if you want to run Netflix and a few other streaming and cloud-based things there. They don't work in Firefox, or you have to hack them to get them to work. I am not a fan of installing a ton of extensions into a web browser. I think the more extensions you have, the less stable the web browser becomes. So therefore, I kind of stick pretty close to the default configuration, and that's just how it is for me. I mean, I know a lot of people go, oh, well, with Firefox, anything that you complain about, somebody will say, well, there's an extension for that. That's great. If you want to fool around with all that stuff, you go right ahead. I keep my extensions to a very bare minimum. Of course, there is Chromium, and Chromium is the open source version of Google Chrome. So if you want the Chrome experience, but you don't want the Google part, you could try that. Most everything works in Chromium that works in Chrome. And you can even hook it up to your Google account so it will keep your sync up all of your bookmarks and things in the cloud. And that's something that I use very heavily, is the ability to sync things in the cloud. Both Firefox and Google Chrome do that, and I like that because I'm always moving from machine to machine, and whatever machine I happen to be on, as long as it's signed into those accounts, then I can get in there and make that work. So as far as email is concerned, I'm using Thunderbird right now, and I realize that Thunderbird's life is kind of in question as well, since Mozilla is trying to find somebody to take it over. But Thunderbird is very well established, and for those of us who actually do like email clients and don't like webmail, it's a great choice. Sip of coffee. Yes. Okay, so there you go. We've pretty much said everything we need to say about the internet. So now let's switch over to another desktop, and this is a desktop you see I have a bunch of applications open on because this is what I do with a computer more than anything else, and that's deal with sound and video. So I want to run through these applications real quick. The first application that you see here is Simple Screen Recorder, which I am using to record this video. Simple Screen Recorder is the best screen recording software that I have ever used. For a very short period of time, when I first started running Ubuntu Mate, it wasn't available for that platform yet. The 1604 Ubuntu's, it wasn't quite out yet. I used VocoScreen. VocoScreen was okay, but I ran into a few issues, and so therefore I switched back to Simple Screen Recorder as soon as it became available. And Simple Screen Recorder, I don't necessarily like the interface because you have to kind of go through this wizard every time that you want to record a video, but it's so reliable and the quality of what you get is awesome, and I don't have to do a lot of tweaks to it to get it to work. So that's why I use Simple Screen Recorder. Simple Screen Recorder is available for Ubuntu through a PPA, and I think in Arch Linux it's in the AUR. You just download it. It might even be in the regular repos in Arch. I'm not really sure, but pretty much whatever kind of Linux you're running, there's a way to get Simple Screen Recorder on it. One of my favorite applications. So let's switch over to the next one here. This is one called Tag Tool, and what this does is it does batch processing of metadata tags for MP3 and OGG Vorbis files, and I have a ton of those to keep up with. Tag Tool is very simple and straightforward. It's been around for a long, long time. I've actually been using this particular application for many years. And I don't do a whole lot of that these days. My music collection is pretty much static, but if I have to, then I can work on that sort of thing using this. So the next thing I want to talk about is a lovely little application called MP3 Gain. And MP3 gain allows you to set an average playback level for MP3 and OGG Vorbis files. And that is really nice if you have a very large collection of music and you like to have things shuffle in the background and you want everything to be kind of at a general same listening level. And the nice thing about MP3 gain is that it does not actually re-encode the file. It's lossless. So it just goes in and sets each frame of an MP3 or an OGG file to a certain playback level, and that's it. And it's non-destructive. You can get rid of it by, you can just reset the levels in the file if you want to. So that's a great tool to have around. Let's see what else we got here to talk about. Speaking of audio again, this is a little program that I love called Asunder. Asunder is a CD ripper, and you put a CD in here, and then you can create music files to put in your music collection. And one of the really nice things about Asunder is that it has a ton of codecs available that you can use. So whatever your preferred codec is, there you go. I have it set up to make OGGs. I decided a while back that I was no longer going to create MP3 files. I am now using OGG, and so therefore I can just throw a CD in here, rip it, and I'm done. So that's something worth looking at. Probably would help if I'd close some of these applications as I talk about them, wouldn't it? Yes, that would be a good idea. Okay, so we can go ahead and get rid of those. Don't close Simple Screen Recorder. Next thing I want to show you is VLC, which is one of the greatest audio players ever. And VLC runs on every platform, and it'll play just about any file that you can think of. VLC has some very advanced features, and it'll do a lot more than just playback. You can use this to stream. You can use this for screen capturing. You can all kinds of crazy stuff you can do with VLC. So that's become my pretty much main video and audio player in Linux. And VLC is awesome. That's all there is to it. So the next one that I want to show you is the default player that comes with Linux Mint. And I also install this pretty much on any other application. So even when I go to Ubuntu, I usually end up removing Rhythmbox and placing Banshee on the system, because Banshee is a great music organizer. It's got some other features. Now I find that when I open Banshee, that the first thing that I have to do is jump into the preferences, and I will come over here and turn a lot of the plugins and things off. I mean, you can see this thing does a lot. It'll fetch cover art, and it'll do metadata fix up, and it'll do Wikipedia articles and internet radio and Apple support, Apple device support and all that stuff. I really don't need all that, so I go through and turn it off. But the nice thing about Banshee that I have found is that it works really well with very large music collections. So I will occasionally use Banshee, and I like to have it set up just to have it around. Actually, it's just a program that I like. VLC allows me to do some audio processing that Banshee won't do. So that's one of the reasons I've been using it lately. I like to have a little bit of compression on my music, make it a little smoother, and VLC has a nice built-in compressor. And if you don't know what that is, then don't worry about it, okay? And finally, the last one I want to talk about here, well, not the last one, but one of the audio programs that I get a lot of use out of is Audacity. And I've been using Audacity for a long time. Now, a few years ago, I was doing a lot of audio production for radio. I was doing freelance stuff, which meant that I was doing voiceovers, and I was doing things like mixing liners and making commercials and full production. So I was using Adobe Audition for that, actually a pretty old version. And in Linux, I was running that in Wine. And I started to use Audacity more and more, and I have gotten to the point where this pretty much does what I need it to do. If I ever get to a place where I'm going to start doing, serious editing like that again, I'll probably look into learning how to run Ardour, which is an application that does serious professional editing. But for what I'm doing these days, if somebody calls up and says they need a voiceover and they just need me to record something real quick, no big deal. All I got to do is fire up Audacity, and then I can record the track and do some basic editing and then send it to them in whatever file format they're looking for. So Audacity is a good basic editor. It's cross-platform, and it's very high quality. So the last thing that I want to talk about is video editing. I do not do a lot of video editing. I used to, when I first started doing YouTube videos, really edit the crap out of them, and that's back when I was using Windows Movie Maker and Windows XP. And over the years, I have done less and less as far as editing is concerned, simply because people don't seem to care. It's the content that matters, not how shiny and glitzy and whatever it is. And the other thing is, I'm not very good at video editing, so therefore, I don't do it much. But when I do need to do some video editing, this is the program that I use. It's KDN Live. And this comes to us from the KDE desktop. So therefore, when you install KDN Live, you need to make sure that you get the KDE runtime and all the dependencies. That's a little bit of a problem in Linux Mint, but never had that problem with Ubuntu or any other distribution that I have put it on. It is available in the repos. You can just download it, but in Linux Mint, it takes a little bit more massaging to get it going. And it's a very good editor, and it's gotten better and better and better. And as a matter of fact, there's a brand new version of KDN Live that has just come out, which is really awesome. This one's a little bit older, but it does what I need it to do, which is basic editing. And then you can render things as like MP4 files or whatever, the codecs that are available to you or whatever you want to use. So that is the video editor that I use when I do video editing. I used this just yesterday, as a matter of fact, to do some editing on some videos, not for YouTube, but elsewhere. And I was really happy with it, how well it was working. So, KDN Live for video editing. All right, so let's move on to the next screen. And this one, I want to touch on graphics a little bit. I'm not a huge graphic person. I used to do these thumbnails for these videos. I used to use GIMP to create thumbnails and put text in them and things like that, but I don't anymore. So if you're somebody who is a casual Photoshop user, you might find yourself using GIMP, and or when you come to Linux, because Photoshop is not native to Linux, so therefore you'll probably have to use GIMP. And it does pretty much everything that Photoshop does. Now, I'm no expert on that, but I've seen people do some pretty amazing things with GIMP. So even if you're currently running Windows or Mac, you can go download GIMP and you can install it on your machine, and you probably will be quite amazed at how powerful it is. So even before you install Linux, you can start using GIMP and play around with it. And that's the same thing with Audacity. If that's something you want to do, that runs very happily on all different platforms as a basic audio editor, so you can start getting the hang of that as well. As far as photo management is concerned, the one that I like the best is called Gthumb. And Ubuntu comes with Shotwell pre-installed. And Shotwell's okay, but just for managing photos and things like that, I really like Gthumb. It just is easier for me to use. So it allows you to do a lot of things. You can change the set. You can edit your photos, change the saturation. You can crop them. You can do all kinds of stuff. So Gthumb is definitely one worth checking out. And if it's not pre-installed on Linux Mint, it's one click away to get it installed. But well, I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to think if this is the default for any distributions, and I'm not sure if it is or not. I get confused because like I said, I just reloaded a bunch of machines, so I don't remember what was here when I actually installed it or not. But either way, cool application to play with. So you can use this to look at pictures, and let's see, let's find a picture here, and then I can open up the edit screen. And now we have all kinds of options. I can play with the graphics. So Gthumb, definitely a cool photo management tool. And then we have, I want to look at a couple of system applications. First of all, there's HTOP. We've talked about HTOP a lot on here. This is a terminal-based application in Linux that allows you to come in here and see what's running and kill processes and really gain control of your system. There is nothing like this for Windows that I know of. I don't know whether this is, I think HTOP is available for Mac, but I'm not sure. Don't hold me to that. But it is a great program to have around just to see what your system is doing. Of course, anything that's GNOME desktop-based or KDE desktop-based, they come with system monitors that do kind of the same thing. But HTOP is awesome, so that's a piece of software that I absolutely have to have. And then there's Terminator, which is my that I just really started getting into using in the last couple of days here. that allows me to open a bunch of terminals all in one window, and I don't have to remember a bunch of keyboard shortcuts to do that. And this becomes important when you start working at a terminal, which is something that I do a lot. And these days, especially now that I have all these machines on the network with SSH, I can just log into other machines and do things. And so therefore, Terminator, awesome thing to have. And the other piece of software that I wanted to talk about was Bleach Bit. Pretty much every installation of Linux I ever put on, I put in Bleach Bit. And Bleach Bit is a piece of software that allows you to go through and clear out stuff that you don't need anymore on your system, like browser caches and just a whole bunch of things here. You see this is set up to do that right now. So I can set that to clear out the cache in Chromium and compact databases. So there you go. And then you just turn this thing loose. So if you're looking to keep your system clean and keep it well maintained, Linux is very good at not really getting dirty. I mean, it's not like Windows is. Windows is the dirtiest operating system that ever lived. All you have to do is boot up a Windows machine to create a bunch of junk files and garbage on the drive. So back when I was running Windows, I mean, starting back in Windows like 98 days, I was always having to install that Piriform CCleaner program to go through and get rid of all that stuff. Well, in Linux, it's not quite that bad, but Linux does generate log files and things like that. And, of course, browsers have big caches, so you can get rid of a lot of those things with Bleach Bit. So there you go, gang. That is a quick run-through of a bunch of the software that I pretty much use every day on my Linux computer. And I used to really have a bunch of software installed on my machines. Back when I ran Windows, I had all this crap on there. And I had to sit down when I switched over to Linux and have a talk with myself and say, look, you don't need all this crap. What is it that you're actually trying to do? And so, therefore, I started to look at simpler applications. And it's not so much, a lot of the Windows users that come to Linux, it's not so much a matter of Linux being hard to learn for them. The hard part is having to unlearn the way Windows does things. Because once you get out of that mindset of having to tweak and coax and push the machine into doing what you want it to do, Linux is so much simpler because everything is just there. It either works or it doesn't. You just keep looking until you find the solution that does work for you. And once you get over getting locked into one distribution, or rather one piece of software, like I cannot function without Photoshop, I can't function without this. Once you get over that mindset of, okay, well, there are other ways to do this and I'm going to learn how to do it other ways, then it becomes so much easier. So there you go. It's a look at the Linux software that I use on a daily basis. And of course there's more, but we don't want to keep this going for too long. I will say before we close this out that I think the greatest thing that I ever did for me personally, as far as my online experience, my computing experience was concerned, was dump Windows. And yeah, there are a few things that I miss about Windows. Like, for instance, the Windows Live Movie Maker probably has the best interface for down and dirty quick editing of videos ever. I mean, especially when you're dealing with things like titles and transitions, it's just so easy to use. It does not generate the best quality videos, though. But as far as the actual experience of editing video, that was a pretty easy application. And Linux has improved just in leaps and bounds as far as things like video editing is concerned. But we haven't got quite that application yet that is as easy to use as that one is, interface-wise, that actually puts out quality. So that's why I use KDE and Live. So yeah, there are a few things that I miss, but mainly I'm very happy running Linux. So if you're one of those people who's looking at this video and you're saying to yourself, I would like to run Linux, but I'm scared of what software, the solution's out there. I mean, I don't know too many people that have rolled to Linux and couldn't get work done. You just might have to figure out how to do it a different way. So thank you for watching. Be sure and check out Easy Linux on the web. I would appreciate that. Check out Easy Linux on Facebook here. And if you do, give it a like. We've gotten a lot of likes, and this is really becoming a great little community built around the Facebook page here. And you see that I post a lot of stuff that is pertinent to folks who use Linux on the desktop or on their laptops every day. So I kind of, whenever I come across something that I think you guys might like, I post it up here, so do check that out. Also check out freedompenguin.com. Freedom Penguin's got lots of really great articles about Linux, and Freedom Penguin is becoming a very nice little clearinghouse for information on how to run Linux. Just taking a look here, let's see what we got. We got Looking into Outlook on Linux. SSH is for Dummies 2. That's the article that I just posted or submitted to get posted. And so there's a whole bunch of stuff here. Like you can check out here. Like, okay, Linux audio podcast software. That's an article I have to check out later. So, anyway. Thank you for watching the video, gang. We will talk again soon.